Welcome to the Nonprofit Voice, which is brought to you by Nonprofit Pro, the go-to resource for nonprofit management and strategy. In each episode, we'll sit down with nonprofit executives, consultants, and technology partners to learn more about the latest tactics, strategies, and trends in the nonprofit sector. As always, you can download all Nonprofit Voice episodes on Apple, Google, and Spotify. To be the first to know of new episode releases, follow us on social media and subscribe to our e-newsletter.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Mark Becker here, the founding partner of Cathexis Partners. Today, we are joined by Gabe Cooper with Virtuous. Gabe, feel free to introduce yourself. Welcome, first of all, and would love to have you introduce yourself, talk about your background, your origin story, and a little bit about Virtuous to kick us off.
Yeah, Mark, thanks for having me on. Big fan of what you're doing on the podcast and at Cathexis. So like really grateful to be in the conversation. Yeah, Gabe, CEO of Virtuous. I've been in and around nonprofit tech for the last 20 years and spent time sort of more directly helping with fundraising in a nonprofit and have spent time on the board of a few nonprofits. Mark, you get a kick out of this, but every nonprofit board I join, I end up having to sort of run the fundraising committee because
Shocker.
board that can help with that. And but yes, for the last 10 years, I've been the CEO of Virtuous, founded Virtuous as a way to help nonprofits connect more personally with donors at scale. What we saw in the market with nonprofit tech generally is that a lot of fundraising shops have like really close personal relationships with their top major donors, but everybody else on their file was just getting the same spray and pray marketing. They get the same email newsletter, the same appeal. And we thought, man, like all of our other brand experiences are hyper personalized to us. Like it shouldn't be this way. Nonprofits can do better. And the problem wasn't that nonprofits didn't want to do better. The problem was their tooling sort of reinforced this bad legacy behavior. And so we've spent the last 10 years working hard to fix that problem. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been great sitting on the sidelines watching the whole growth of Virtuous and really getting more traction in the nonprofit space. And over those 10 years, but this year alone, I mean, you've had some huge milestones, right? You had your second book come out. Congrats.
Thanks so much. A lot of
Yeah,
fun.
the responsive nonprofit. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we when we first started talking about this idea of responsive fundraising several years ago, this idea that you should build a more personal relationship with your donors, that it's possible to do that at scale. Um, what we realized is that most fundraisers that we talked to about that would nod vigorously. Yes, I really want to do that. And we double click on what's preventing you from doing that. And a lot of times it's sort of change management. They're not actually able to innovate quickly to sort of get out of the institutional inertia of the way we've always done it and move to this world that just feels like too risky, too hard boiling the ocean. And so this new book, The Responsive Nonprofit, is really sort of a playbook for innovation within nonprofits. It's how do nonprofits innovate more quickly? How do they try new ideas? How do they manage change? Like how do they like have a good view into their data that actually allows them to see if stuff is working or not working and set clear goals around that. So um, it sort of broadens the aperture of the first book, but we feel like it's been really helpful in sort of helping nonprofits navigate innovation and change.
I like it. I like it. And you recently came out with a benchmark report that kind of continues on with that theme. I mean, it just reinforces a lot of the same things, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's been fun to do a benchmark report this year. It was our first benchmark report. I'm a big consumer of benchmark
Yeah,
reports,
me
right?
too.
Uh, for me, I just like to know how I'm stacking up against like the market, right? So for other people like me, how am I doing across a set of KPIs? What we found was, every nonprofit's a little bit different just because, somebody else is doing more major donor than you are, they're better retention than you do, doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing something wrong. But it can be really helpful to identify like where the gaps are in your fundraising program and what the biggest areas for improvement are, right? So if you're way off on retention compared to the benchmarks, like that's an area to double click. And what we also found is Carly Berna, who worked on this benchmark report with me, pointed out when she was a CDO, CMO, probably $40 million org roughly. And she would use benchmarks to go into the boardroom to say, hey, you guys are saying you want this cost for new donor acquisition. Like we're already doing better than industry benchmarks here. I don't know how much more blood we can squeeze out of that radish, right? So being able to sort of use benchmarks to have clear conversations across your team is really, really helpful. So, and the other thing with this new benchmark report is, in our view, there's kind of like 7 core metrics that every fundraiser should look at, right? And holistically, they fit together to sort of paint a picture of how healthy your fundraising program is. What we found is at many organizations, you kind of have a grab bag of metrics or KPIs that you look at every once in a while, but it's not sort of that thoughtful or structured. Or you have 1 or 2 that you really love and you sort of sacrifice other KPIs that are actually really, really important. So part of this report was actually just giving nonprofits a structured list of here's the KPIs that really matter and here's how they fit together to tell you if your fundraising program is healthy or not.
And I like it. It reminds me when reviewing it. I'm the same way with it's benchmark reports. It's great to have them and know where you stand and working with our clients. Hey, do you even know? You say you're not happy with your open rate or your donation levels. So what are you comparing them against? A year over year, and so what about the rest of the world and looking outside your own house? And I just like to me, when I look at this report, it reminds me of kind of taking a more corporate commercial view of things and thinking about it like and not just as a nonprofit but as a business would, right? Starting out with one of your key findings, you stop off the top, is donor retention is crucial. It's just like keeping a customer is much easier than finding a new one, and it just kind of goes on from there. And having those key metrics and thinking about it as a business, and just finding all these things and making sure you're focused on the right items, right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's a tough mix. The reality is people aren't giving based on numbers. Giving is not transactional. People give
Mm-hmm.
based on what's in their heart and how they resonate with your story. And so the effectiveness of your fundraising program often comes down to how well you can tell your story. And so at the front end of fundraising is a lot of heart, right? But you can measure the effectiveness of that heart. So on the back end, you should be able to be like very well metriced as an organization. In fact, I would say especially in sort of the changing landscape of fundraising, the nonprofits that aren't well metriced, that don't really understand the numbers of their fundraising program, those are going to be the ones that are most at risk. The ones that truly
Mm-hmm.
understand sort of the algebra of their program, those are the ones that are going to be the most resilient and the most able to respond to change. So I think that sort of that numbers based, and I know it's hard sometimes if you're not like a spreadsheet person, but that really is kind of the magic trick to building a sort of a flourishing program.
I like it. Yeah, know your metrics, focus on them, and don't under review things, and don't get stuck with analysis paralysis. Right? Know what you're looking for, and stop digging when
That's
when
right.
you get there. Yeah,
That's exactly right.
that's great. Well, on top of that, also in this year, and trying to summarize your year, from again the cheap seats, you got 100 million in funding. That's fun. That's a lot you can work with, right? What's the plan?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the plan is more of the same. I think, I'm going to be careful about how I say this, but I think historically in nonprofit tech, sometimes people have gotten out over their skis a little bit with like sort of financial engineering, meaning they've gone and bought a bunch of different companies and shoved stuff together,
Hmm.
spent way more money than they needed to. And I think in many of those cases, the people that suffer are the customers, because now all of a sudden, the company I used to work with no longer exists. They got bought by some other company. The people at the new company have no idea who I am. They've changed strategic directions 4 times. The company went out of business. It's just like it's been a little bit rocky for nonprofits navigating tech over the last decade. And so the one thing we're committed to here is just we know who our customer is. We love them. We think they're amazing. And the new capital just gives us the opportunity to lean in even more to figure out how to serve them better, right? So not going up and buying 40 other companies or trying to do something unnatural, but really just refocusing our energy on serving our customers. For us, that means we have the privilege to invest ahead in R&D. The honest truth is, like, we can operate profitably. So we don't need money to stay in business, which is a great position to be in. But having a
Hmm.
little extra cash actually allows you to invest in innovation, like invest in R&D. I think that the nonprofit space deserves the best tools the market has to offer. And I think for too long, we've been um, okay with being 15 years behind our for-profit cousins, and it kind of drives me nuts. And so, like, I want the for-profit space to be looking over at nonprofits, tools, and process, and going like, "That's awesome. We want that," right? And so, I'm hoping that this newest round of funding and sort of our strategic intent gives us the ability to do that.
Yeah, focusing on the R&D is the key there. And besides, you already have Eric Tamales out there in all out in the wild, all over the place. I run into him everywhere, so you got that piece covered, and he covers it well. So
Yeah, yeah. If you if you've been at a nonprofit conference in the last 5 years, you have likely met Eric Tamales. Even if you don't know you met him, you definitely met him. The guy
that's right.
is all over the place waving the virtual flag, and so incredibly grateful for him.
So being able to have some additional funds to take it to the next level, that's exciting to see.
But but software by itself d doesn't necessarily solve the problem. It's just a tool, right? And so
Hmm.
for us, we're really keyed in on providing a platform, but also providing a playbook and providing people, right? So kind of 3 Ps, and the magical fourth P there is actually partners, which is a big part of the people story for us. So when we come into a nonprofit, it's not just like, here's some software, but here's some great, an academy to learn how to use it to be a more effective
Hmm.
fundraiser. Here's a playbook for how you can be more effective. But for us, it's partners like you guys that can come alongside us and to be sort of the second set of hands and professionals that can really help optimize internal processes, team management, moving data around, connecting with other tools. And so, I mean, I think even for the nonprofits listening to this, if you're thinking about technology change, you should really think about it in that lens, which is just not, I'm buying a piece of software here, but like, do I have the playbook and the people and the partners to really drive success?
That's right. And I think you mentioned it earlier about inertia, kind of being the biggest villain in all of this. It's so easy to get kind of stuck in the ways that we've been doing things. So all the things that you're putting out there into the world and into the industry kind of is great, just to make people think in new ways and break old traditions. And that's terrific.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Institutional inertia is like sort of, it's the biggest enemy of any company, really, but especially nonprofits. In my book, I have this, it's called Martech's Law. It's was created, Scott Brinker created it to sort of illustrate this idea that innovation and technology in the world compounds. Every new technology innovation builds on each other, right? So, think about when
Hmm.
we all got AOL or Prodigy in the 90s, connected to the internet for the first time, right? Well, shortly after that, we get like online user groups and communities, and then we get MySpace, and then the iPhone comes out, and then we have Facebook on the iPhone, then we have Uber, and then Airbnb, and then nobody's going to a video store anymore. It's just like this, like, well, that's exponential. What happens in organizations is innovation is incremental. Like we want to get 5% better every year, right? But what happens is over time, you see this like growing gap between where your organization is at and where the rest of the world is at. Because innovation's happening exponentially on the outside. Inside, I'm getting 5% better. Well, there's like this gap, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's particularly true in the nonprofit space because sometimes you're not sort of facing the same competitive market pressure. And so you don't always feel this like imminent threat. It's like it's death by a thousand cuts, right? And so, for us, it really is helping organizations look around and understand the institutional inertia that they're swimming in. Sort of they don't feel stuck, but man, if they don't make a change now, like this problem could get a lot worse over time, right?
Yeah.
And waking up to that and then seeing hope that you can actually change and be successful. Like it's not all risk. It doesn't have to be scary, but there is a path to something better, even more sort of substantial risk and changes than just the 5% better every year. So anyway, that's a soapbox I can get on, but it's
No, well
take
said.
back the point.
I like it. Yeah, that's a great analogy, and definitely helps explain the gap and how all this technology is moving so fast. And people hear things like AI, and a few years ago, very intimidated by it, but people are really just owning it now, and many are still intimidated, rightfully, fairly so. The honest ones, right? Because it's a lot, and yeah, I know you all are doing a lot in that space and involved with fundraising AI as an organization and just making sure it's responsible and done ethically and properly, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the sort of the ethics and responsibility around AI, that is a huge conversation, something we take very seriously. But on the flip side, it's been fun to see so many nonprofits like actually embrace it recently
Mm-hmm.
and figure out how it works in their use case. I think it has
Yeah.
massive power in the nonprofit sector. On the program side, on the fundraising side of the house, part of the problem with many nonprofits is just there's not enough time and people in the day to do everything you want to do. The cause you're attacking is huge. And sometimes your team feels small and strapped for resources. Well, if you can use tools like AI to cut out all of the waste. One of our customers once said, like it can help you get rid of the menial work and focus on the meaningful work, right? And so AI
Yeah.
has huge value in eliminating the menial work and kind of amplifies what your team can do. So that's really exciting for me. And the nonprofits I've seen really using it that way have just taken off like a rocket, which is great.
I agree. Yeah, terrific. Any final thoughts as we kind of lean into 2025 right around the corner?
Um, no, good luck to everybody listening on year-end fundraising. We are going into like crazy busy time of the year right now. So we are just heating up into fundraising. So good luck.
And thank you, Gabe, so much for your time today. And thanks everybody for joining us.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for listening. Listen to more episodes at nonprofitpro.com as well as on Apple, Google, and Spotify.